Matt Buccigrosso here, creator of Xenoplicity and the Q system it runs on. Today's video, let's just talk a little bit about bad habits in the hobby, things that you should avoid doing. This goes for game masters as well as players. So number one, let's talk about the wrong type of dice to use at your table. It gets under my skin. There's so many dice out there that are like super popular and they sell a bunch, but they're not readable. Like they're just, they put a bunch of squirrely little lines and decorations and on the dice, or they make like a color combo of the dice with the numbers and the dice color itself, to the point where it's almost impossible, even in good lighting, to read the results of the dice. You should not use these dice. I get it. There's a lot of dice out there that look really pretty, but if they're not functional, okay, if you have to strain your eyes to make out the result, or if it takes you more than a split second to look down and recognize what the number is, it's not a good die to use at your table. The goal is to play a game with your friends, right? So if it's taking you, 30 seconds to a minute to read the dice and then announce to everybody at the table what you've rolled, you're just wasting everybody's time. It's frustrating, especially considering a lot of game tables, you may not have bright light in the room. Maybe for one reason or another, you've got low or dim lighting, or maybe you've got some lighting effects going on for the sake of the game. So that can make that even worse of an issue. And this really kind of brings me into my next thing, and that is that players, game master or player, that will roll the dice and then take a long time to announce what the result is. Whether it's true or not, this gives the impression that you're cheating. Okay, it gives the impression that you're trying to come up with the result rather than just announce what was rolled on the dice. Okay, don't do this. Don't be that guy. Okay, it's a game. It's a game, guys. It's not that serious. It's not real life. Stop trying to cheat at the table, or stop acting like you're cheating at the table, right? This is true for game masters as well. Like if you're a game master, roll out in the open. Roll out in the open where everybody can see, and stop these shenanigans where you're rolling behind a screen. And then you're like hawing around about what it is you rolled, whether it was a success, whether it was a failure. I got little patience for this. It's a bad habit. And inevitably, it's going to make people feel robbed, okay, at the table, right? Because either you've cheated in a way that has saved them, and I'll be honest, a lot of players that I've played with over the years, they would rather have something bad happen to their character than feel like you went easy on them and they were spared just because you declared it so, okay? Players don't want to be coddled like that, not really, and because it makes any victory that they actually achieve feel cheap and unearned, okay? And so don't do that to your players, okay? Don't put them in a position where they can't reliably, truly say they won, okay? Or they overcame that. Don't cheat at your table. Don't haw around by giving results. Just roll the dice and announce what the result is and be done with it, okay? Let the chips fall where they may. Let the dice roll what they roll. Stop trying to control it or trying to like soften the blow or somehow negate what is rolled. It is a game, guys. It is fundamentally just a game. So you need to treat it as such and be fair and be honest about what you roll and not delay it. Okay. Another thing is sometimes players get this bad habit of talking over the game master. And often it's about things that are not even happening in the game. Oftentimes it is a conversation that's taking place outside the game, but it's happening at the game table or really close to the game table, to the point where it's difficult for people to listen and understand what it is the game master is saying. This breaks immersion. This is not a good habit. You should not be doing this. Show some respect to the game master. Pay attention, even if it's not your turn. I get it. A lot of games, you have to wait, 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes for your turn to play. And I know that, these are your friends. These are people that you've got together to play with. So you're excited. You want to talk to them. You want to make jokes with them. You want to tell them about your day. Okay, there's a time and a place to do all those things. But while the game is going on, that's the time reserved for playing the game. Okay, so if you guys need to take breaks, you need to pause the game every so often, so where you can have out of game conversations. That's what you should do. But what you shouldn't do is when the game master is trying to paint the picture and narrate a situation or talk about what NPCs are doing on their turn or whatever the game master is doing. That is not the time for you to start cutting up with someone across the table. It's just rude. It's just inconsiderate of everybody's time. So don't do that. All right. Don't be that guy. Don't talk over people. Don't constantly make jokes at the table. Don't constantly quote movies at the table, okay? On some level, I think we've all probably been guilty of it to one extent or another. And there are some really funny moments that I can recall from my own past where someone has busted out a movie quote at that precisely right time to make the whole table erupt in laughter, okay? Because it really just fit extremely well in what was happening in the game. I'm not trying to take that away from any table, right? Like there's a certain level of cutting up and having fun that should be part of a game session. And so it's not like it has to all be serious all the time. But what I have found is usually the players that do this excessively. And so it's not that they do it maybe once a game session and it's perfectly timed and that's all that we're talking about. Normally, it's like a constant repeat offense that really just interrupts the game session and slows the game session down and bogs it down to the point where you don't get nearly as far in the game session as what you wanted to get. So there's a time and place for these things. I'm not saying you have to weed it totally out, or you have to kick someone out of your group just because maybe they do make jokes or they do, act that way. But just, keep it within reason. You know what I mean? Like, don't abuse it. Now, another thing that I've noticed sometimes game masters will do, there is a temptation as a game master for you to heavily narrate everything. Where you want to repeat back everything that the player characters say and do. You want to repeat it back in a paraphrasing way. I think that there is an aspect of this where it's beneficial, okay? Especially during action scenes. And I think I talk about this a little bit in Xenoplicity in the Game Master section, in the Director chapter, where a little trick of the trade is that if you wanna make the character seem heroic, one of the things you can do is narrate back what the player characters have done after they've already done it, and put more emphasis on those things, right? And so this can give the impression that they're larger than life or that the focus really is on the player characters. And so there's a place for that. You don't want to overuse that though. And that really should be something only done kind of in an action hero scene kind of thing. Or like in a really pivotal, very, cinematic, climatic moment in the game. You don't want to abuse or overdo that. Otherwise it loses its flair. It loses its impact. Okay. And if you're playing like a horror scene, it will defeat the purpose of what you're trying to do. Because like, for instance, in horror, you actually want to minimize and marginalize the player characters as much as possible. Because again, to generate horror, to generate, intrigue and suspense at your table, to make the players feel a sense of fear, they cannot think that their characters are larger than life. On the opposite, they need to feel like they're like everybody else and that there's nothing special about them. So it depends on what you're trying to get out at the table, get out of the scene, okay? Even though this can be a helpful tool sometimes, oftentimes it gets abused and misused to the detriment of the game session, okay? You don't want to overemphasize everything that the players say. Let what they say stand and just move on from it, okay? They said it well enough. It's their character. Let them speak for themselves. You don't need to repeat and rehash every single thing that a player character says and does. And there's a bigger scale where this happens, where there are some game masters that get in this bad habit of wanting to narrate a novel at the table. It's not really about playing a game with your friends. It's about your friends basically sitting in on you, kind of going over your script and your play that you've wrote that you want them to bear witness to. Okay, and so in this kind of thing where you might have monologues like they go for 5, 10, or sometimes even 15 minutes, where the game master is basically just talking and talking and talking, and the players are just sitting there just twiddling their thumbs or just kind of like looking at each other and rolling their eyes or kind of taking sighs or kind of playing with their dice, because you just keep, as the game master, you just keep going and going and going. This is just a bad way to game master, guys. Like, you're doing it wrong. Like, it's not the way the game is designed to be played. Any game on my shelf, any of these games, that is inappropriate to act that way. Okay, it doesn't matter what game system it is, because and at the end of the day, this is a social game. It is a game of collaborative storytelling. It's everybody playing the game together, right? So you don't want to be in the habit of just going on these long spiels where it's just you just talking and talking and talking, especially, and there's some people that will read from a script. They will literally have a printed out or written out script, and they just want to read every aspect of it. It's just too much. It's just too much. It's boring, and you think it may, in your mind, you think this is so cool and so epic. It's not. No one thinks that's epic. No one is happy with that. And what you think is epic by doing that, everyone else at the table is bored. Okay, because they came to play a game. They came to engage at the table, not to sit there and just listen to you talk and talk and talk and monologue and narrate. Okay, so there's an aspect of control that a game master they just have to let go of that. They have to let go of this idea of control, and they just have to play the game with their friends. Okay. And so that can be a really bad habit at the table if you're not careful. So game masters, you got to be cautious of this, right? At the end of the day, really everyone at the table should be respectful and polite and professional to each other. All right, we all come together. We all sit around a table. We're playing a game together. There needs to be a level of professionalism and respect between all the players, including the game master. And so from the game master side, that means not overly controlling and lording over the table. Okay, not overly narrating, knowing when to shut up and just let the players play the game. Okay. And from a player standpoint, it means also knowing when to shut up. It means knowing when to pay attention. It means not disrespecting another player or the game master by trying to talk over other people. And just remember, at the end of the day, that it is just a game. Okay, so it's no different than getting together at for a poker night or for a day at golf with your friends. You show up, you have fun, and then you go home. Okay, you don't get into arguments or fights because things didn't go your way. You realize that your success at the table with your friends, the fun you're going to have, is not contingent on your player character surviving or winning or doing well. Okay, the game flows and plays regardless of the outcome for those characters. You are not your character. You can always make another character if something bad happens to the character that you have. What's important is that you have fun with your friends at the table, and that you don't let disagreements at the table spark into fights and arguments. That you take a step back and realize it's just a game, and you're not going to get too worked up about it. You're going to pay attention. You're going to stay engaged. You're going to have fun. You're not going to have electronics out at the table. You're going to be messing around on your phone, texting and checking emails and checking social media while the game is going on. When the game is going on, all tablets, all cell phones need to be put aside. And if you have to take a call, great. Say, hey guys, let's pause the game real quick. I got to take this. Otherwise, stay off your phone. Okay? There's no reason for you to be on your phone during a game session. Period. And that goes for the game master too. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If I'm going to have everybody at my table stay off their phones, well, then I better stay off my phone too, right? Like there should not be a double standard. It's the same reason why I tell game masters, if you're going to make sure that everyone else rolls out in the open, well, you need to be rolling out in the open too, because at the end of the day, you're also playing the game, right? A game master is a player just like all the other players are. They have a different role to fill, but they're also still playing with their friends at the same table. And so, it's not one set of rules for one person and everyone else has to play by a different set of rules. We're all playing this game together. We all play by the same rules. And if it's not something you want to do yourself, then don't force that on other people. These are just some thoughts that I had that I wanted to share. And for what it's worth, you know, guys, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this: respect the people you play with, respect their time, respect them as a person, and you know, just go into every game session realizing that like you're there to have fun. Okay, so don't bring your real world problems into the game. Don't bring your drama into the game. Leave it at the door. You know, it'll be there. It'll be there waiting for you when the game night's over. You don't need to bring that to the table and infect everybody else with your personal drama and baggage. Okay, we all got plenty enough of that on our own, right? Really, you should set an expectation at the beginning of your game that these are things not to do. Okay. And if you do that and people know not to do these things, well, then chances are you're not going to have a problem with them at your table, okay? Unless someone's just being a jerk and they're just being rude, in which case you have that conversation with them too about not being that way, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Is there anything I missed? Anything you guys would add to that? Let me know in the comments below.